Lucas Bennett was a cleaner. He mopped floors, folded towels, and kept his head down inside the mansion of one of the most powerful women in the city, Victoria Hayes. One night she came home drunk. He walked into her room to deliver fresh towels. He walked out 6 hours later with $600,000 on the nightstand and a feeling he could never wash off. Weeks later, Victoria called him into her office, not to fire him, but to propose. A 2-year contract marriage. Lucas thought it was just a transaction. He was wrong. Every morning at 5:45, Lucas Bennett pulled into the long gravel driveway of the Hayes estate in a pickup truck that had seen better decades. The engine rattled, the brakes groaned, and the mansion at the end of the road stood like a different universe. White stone, floor-to-ceiling glass, a fountain in the courtyard that probably cost more than everything Lucas had ever owned, combined. He parked in the back near the service entrance the way he had for the past 11 months. He never used the front door. That door was not for people like him. Lucas was 34, built lean from years of physical work, with hands that were rough and a face that rarely smiled. He had come to this job the way most people come to things they never planned out of necessity. His marriage had fallen apart 2 years earlier. Not with screaming or betrayal, but with silence. The kind of silence that fills a house until there is nothing left to breathe. When it ended, he walked away with debt, a rented studio apartment, and the quiet understanding that he had to start over from nothing. The cleaning agency sent him to the Hayes estate because nobody else wanted the job. Victoria Hayes had a reputation. She went through household staff the way some people went through coffee quickly, without attachment, and with very little tolerance for imperfection. 3 cleaners had quit in the 6 months before Lucas arrived. One lasted only 2 days. But Lucas did not quit. He showed up, did his work, and never said more than was necessary. He cleaned the glass until it was invisible, folded the linens until the edges were sharp enough to cut, and left before anyone noticed he had been there. What Lucas did not know was that someone always noticed. Victoria Hayes had a habit most people never saw. Between conference calls and board meetings, she would pull up the security feed on her tablet, not to check for theft, not to monitor efficiency, but to watch him. She watched the way he moved through rooms, without rushing, the way he handled her things, with a kind of quiet respect that had nothing to do with fear. Most people who worked for her were either terrified or trying too hard to impress. Lucas was neither. He simply existed in her space, as if the wealth around him meant nothing, and that more than anything caught her attention. Victoria Hayes was 37, sharp-featured, always composed. She ran Hayes Capital Group, a firm her father had built, and she had doubled in size within 5 years of taking over. In public, she was known for her precision, her cold decision-making, and her complete refusal to show vulnerability. Magazines called her the Ice Architect. She had ended her last relationship with a man named Daniel Harper over a year ago, and since then, no one had gotten close. Not because no one tried, because no one was worth the risk. Or so she believed, until the man who cleaned her floors became the only person in her house she actually wanted to talk to. She never did talk to him. Not really. A few words here and there, professional, distant. But her eyes lingered a second longer than they should have, and Lucas, though he never acknowledged it, felt it every single time. It happened on a Thursday night in October. Victoria had come home late from a board meeting that had gone badly. A merger she had been orchestrating for months was falling apart due to internal resistance. And for the first time in a long time, the pressure cracked something inside her. She sat alone in the living room with a bottle of whiskey and drank it the way someone drinks when they are not trying to enjoy it. They are trying to disappear. Lucas was finishing his shift. He had folded the last set of towels and was about to leave when the head housekeeper, Mrs. Calloway, stopped him. Miss Hayes requested fresh towels in the master suite. She spilled something. Mrs. Calloway's expression made it clear she did not want to be the one to go up there. Lucas took the towels without a word and climbed the stairs. The door to the master suite was open, The lights were dim. Victoria was sitting on the edge of her bed, still in her work clothes, a black blouse unbuttoned at the collar. Her shoes kicked off her hair loose for the first time Lucas had ever seen. The bottle was on the nightstand, nearly empty. She looked up when he walked in, and her eyes were glassy, unfocused, but something in them sharpened the moment she saw him. "You're still here," she said. It was not a question. It was almost an accusation, as though his presence at that hour was something personal, something he had chosen rather than been assigned. Lucas set the towels on the chair near the bathroom door. "Mrs. Calloway said you needed these." He turned to leave. "Lucas." The way she said his name stopped him. Not loud, not commanding, just honest. Raw. Like she had been holding it in her mouth for a long time, and finally let it fall. He turned back. She was standing now, closer than she should have been, and the look on her face was not the CEO, not the ice architect, not the woman on magazine covers. It was someone tired, someone lonely, someone who had spent years building walls, and for one unguarded moment forgot where the door was. What happened next was not planned by either of them, was not romantic, was not beautiful. It was two people who had been alone for too long, standing too close in a room that was too quiet. And when the silence broke, it broke everything with it. The boundary between employer and employee, between control and surrender, it dissolved in a matter of seconds, and neither of them stopped it. When Lucas woke the next morning, the other side of the bed was empty. The curtains were open, letting in gray autumn light. On the nightstand next to the empty whiskey bottle, there was a white envelope. He opened it and found a check for $600,000. Below the amount in Victoria's sharp handwriting were 4 words, "For your discretion." V. Lucas sat on the edge of the bed for a long time, staring at that check. It reduced everything that had happened the night before to a line item, a transaction. He felt something twist in his chest, not anger, not sadness, but something worse. Shame, the kind that sits in your stomach like a stone and does not move. He thought about tearing it up. He thought about leaving it on her desk, but he did neither. He folded the check, put it in his jacket pocket, and walked out of the master suite. He kept it not because he wanted the money, but because throwing it away felt like pretending the night had not happened. And Lucas Bennett was not a man who pretended. Victoria did not speak to him for 3 days after that. When she finally did, it was in the hallway outside the kitchen, and her voice was back to its usual temperature cold measured professional. "The guest bathroom on the 3rd floor needs new grout," she said. Not meeting his eyes, Lucas nodded. "I'll take care of it." As if nothing had happened. As if one broken night could be sealed shut with silence and a sentence about grout. 3 weeks passed. Lucas continued his work at the estate as though the envelope had never existed, but something had shifted in the air between them, a tension that neither acknowledged, but both carried like a weight sewn into their clothes. Victoria's glances through the security feed became longer. Lucas's movements through her rooms became more deliberate, more aware, as if every surface he touched now carried a memory he was trying to wipe clean. Then one afternoon, Lucas received a phone call from Victoria's executive assistant, a woman named Sharon, who spoke in the clipped tone of someone who scheduled billionaires. "Miss Hayes would like to see you at her downtown office. Tomorrow. 10 a.m. A car will be sent." Lucas asked what it was about. Sharon said she didn't specify. The line went dead. The next morning, Lucas sat in the